This is Book 9 of John Dryden's translation of the Aeneid. To start, Turnus will take advantage of Aeneas's absence and attack the Trojans, attempting to fire their ships. The Trojans will set guard for the night and send Nisus and Euryalus to sneak through the Latian troops and fetch Aeneas. The Trojans and Latians will clash, Ascanius will be forbidden to fight, and Turnus will threaten to single-handedly take down the Trojans. So this book is pretty straightforward, but a lot of detail will of course be given. This is Book 9 of the Aeneid by Virgil, translated by John Dryden. While these affairs in distant places pass, the various Iris Juno sends with haste to find bold Turnus, who with anxious thought the secret shade of his great-grandsire sought. Retired alone, she found the daring man, and oped her rosy lips, and thus began. What none of all the gods could grant thy vows, that Turnus this auspicious day bestows. Aeneas, gone to seek the Arcadian prince, has left the Trojan camp without defence, and short of succours there, employs his pains in parts remote to raise the Tuscan swains. Now snatch an hour that favours thy designs, unite thy forces, and attack their lines. This said, on equal wings she poised her weight, and formed a radiant rainbow in her flight. The Daunian hero lifts his hands and eyes, and thus invokes the goddess as he flies. Iris, the grace of heaven, what power divine has sent thee down through dusky clouds to shine? See, they divide, a mortal day appears, and glittering planets dancing in their spheres. With joy these happy omens I obey, and follow to war the god that leads the way. Thus having said, as by the brook he stood, he scooped the water from the crystal flood. Then with his hands the drops to heaven he throws, and loads the powers above with offered vows. Now march the bold confederates through the plain, well horsed, well clad, a rich and shining train. Messapus leads the van, and in the rear the sons of Tyreus and bright arms appear. In the main battle, with his flaming crest, the mighty Turnus towers above the rest. Silent they move, majestically slow, like ebbing Nile or Ganges in his flow. The Trojans view the dusty cloud from far, and the dark menace of the distant war. Caicus from the rampire saw it rise, blackening the fields and thickening through the skies. Then to his fellows thus aloud he calls, "What rolling clouds, my friends, approach the walls? Arm, arm, and man the works, prepare your spears and pointed darts, the Latian host appears." Thus warned, they shut their gates, with shouts ascend the bulwarks, and secure their foes attend. For their wise general, with foreseeing care, had charged them not to tempt the doubtful war, nor, though provoked, in open fields advance, but close within their lines attend their chance. Unwilling, yet they keep the strict command, and sourly wait in arms the hostile band. The fiery Turnus flew before the rest, a piebald steed of Thracian strain he pressed, his helm of massy gold, and crimson was his crest. With 20 horse to second his designs, an unexpected foe he faced the lines. "Is there," he said, "in arms who bravely dare his leader's honor and his dangers share?" Then spurring on, his brandished dart he threw, in sign of war. Applauding shouts ensue. Amazed to find a dastard race, that run behind the rampires and the battle shun, he rides around the camp, with rolling eyes, and stops at every post, and every passage tries. So roams the nightly wolf about the fold. Wet with descending showers, and stiff with cold, he howls for hunger, and he grins for pain. His gnashing teeth are exercised in vain, and, impotent of anger, finds no way in his distended paws to grasp the prey. The mothers listen, but the bleeding lambs securely swig the dug beneath the dams. Thus ranges eager Turnus o'er the plain, sharp with desire and furious with disdain, surveys each passage with a piercing sight, to force his foes in equal field to fight. Thus while he gazes round, at length he spies, where fenced with strong redoubts their navy lies, close underneath the walls. The washing tide secures from all approach this weaker side. He takes the wished occasion, fills his hand with ready fires, and shakes a flaming brand. Urged by his presence, every soul is warmed, and every hand with kindled furs is armed. From the fired pines the scattering sparkles fly, fat vapors mix with flames involve the sky. What power, O Muses, could avert the flame which threatened in the fleet the Trojan name? Tell, for the fact through length of time obscure is hard to faith, yet shall the fame endure. So this book begins with Juno sending the various Iris, the many-colored goddess of the rainbow, down to tell Turnus that this is an auspicious day. This is really favorable because Aeneas has gone to the Arcadian prince. He has sought the Tuscan swains or youths in line 12 we see. And the Daunian, which would be the tribe that Turnus is from, he lifts his hands and invokes the goddess and with joy obeys. So he stoops down and gets some water from the flood, from the river, and he throws it in the air as an offering to the gods. This could have made a rainbow, hypothetically, so perhaps that's what's going on there as well. So Turnus gets all of his men in battle order, and they start approaching the Trojan camp like some majestic, slow river. So this mass of flowing bodies coming toward the Trojans. And the Trojans see them coming, but they've been warned to stay in the gates, to stay inside their strong ramparts. Aeneas didn't want them to try to tempt the doubtful war, line 48. He didn't want them to try and fight this thing that might not go very well, and instead to stay inside the walls, even though the enemy would be tempting them to fight in all these different ways. So Turnus, on this piebald steed, this black and white horse, he's approaching the Trojan camp and asking his own men, is there anybody who's brave enough to fight with me? And so he gears his men up for battle. But he sees this dastard race, this despicable people that are hiding and they refuse to fight. And he's compared to this wolf going around trying to get at these lambs and can't find a way into this camp. The lambs are inside, so to speak, just drinking milk from their mothers, and he's frustrated by this. However, he sees the Trojan ships and he decides they're vulnerable. I could fire these ships and that'll at least hurt the Trojans, if not incite them to fight. And so he gets some firebrands and gets his men some firebrands as well. And there's all of these flames sparkling. And he invokes the Muses at the end to tell exactly what happened next. Because so much time has passed that the truth that has come down through the years is legendary, but really hard to believe what really happened next. And so we read on. Line 92. 'Tis said, when the chief prepared his flight and felled his timber from Mount Ida's height, the grandame goddess then approached her son, and with a mother's majesty begun. Grant me, she said, the sole request I bring, since conquered heaven has owned you for its king. On Ida's brows for ages past there stood, with firs and maples filled, a shady wood, and on the summit rose a sacred grove, where I was worshipped with religious love. Those woods, that holy grove, my long delight, I gave the Trojan prince to speed his flight. Now, filled with fear, on their behalf I come. Let neither winds o'erset nor waves entomb the floating forest of the sacred pine, but let it be their safety to be mine. Then thus replied her awful son, who rolls the radiant stars and heaven and earth controls. How dare you, mother, endless date demand for vessels molded by a mortal hand? What then is fate? Shall bold Aeneas ride of safety certain on the uncertain tide? Yet what I can, I grant. When, wafted o'er, the chief is landed on the Latian shore, whatever ships escape the raging storms, at my command shall change their fading forms to nymphs divine, and plough the watery way, like Dotus and the daughters of the sea. To seal his sacred vow by Styx he swore, the lake of liquid pitch, the dreary shore, and Phlegethon's innavigable flood, and the black regions of his brother god. He said, and shook the skies with his imperial nod. And now at length the numbered hours were come, prefixed by fate's irrevocable doom, when the great mother of the gods was free to save her ships and finish Jove's decree. First, from the quarter of the morn there sprung a light that signed the heavens and shot along. Then from a cloud fringed round with golden fires were timbrels heard and Berecynthian choirs. And last a voice with more than mortal sounds both hosts and arms opposed with equal horror wounds. O Trojan race, your needless aid forbear, and know my ships are my peculiar care. With greater ease the bold Rutulian may with hissing brands attempt to burn the sea than singe my sacred pines. But you, my charge, loosed from your crooked anchors, launch at large, exalted each a nymph. Forsake the sand, and swim the seas at Cybele's command. No sooner had the goddess ceased to speak, when lo, the obedient ships their hawsers break, and strange to tell, like dolphins in the main they plunge their prows and dive and spring again. As many beauteous maids the billows sweep, as rode before tall vessels on the deep. The foe, surprised with wonder, stood aghast. Messapus curbed his fiery courser's haste. Old Tiber roared, and raising up his head, called back his waters to their oozy bed. Turnus alone, undaunted, bore the shock, and with these words his trembling troops bespoke. These monsters for the Trojans' fate are meant, and are by Jove for black presages sent. He takes the cowards' last relief away, for fly they cannot, and constrained to stay, must yield unfought a base and glorious prey. The liquid half of all the globe is lost. Heaven shuts the seas, and we secure the coast. Theirs is no more than that small pot of ground which myriads of our martial men surround. Their fates I fear not, or vain oracles. 'Twas given to Venus they should cross the seas and land secure upon the Latian plains. Their promised hour is past, and mine remains. 'Tis in the fate of Turnus to destroy with sword and fire the faithless race of Troy. Shall such affronts as these alone inflame the Grecian brothers and the Grecian name? My cause and theirs is one, a fatal strife and final ruin for a ravished wife. Was it not enough that punished for the crime they fell, but will they fall a second time? One would have thought they paid enough before to curse the costly sex, and durst offend no more. Can they securely trust their feeble wall, a slight partition, a thin interval betwixt their fate and them, when Troy, though built by hands divine, yet perished by their guilt? Lend me for once, my friends, your valiant hands, to force them out their lines, these dastard bands. Less than 1,000 ships will end this war, nor Vulcan needs his fated arms prepare. Let all the Tuscans, all the Arcadians join, nor these nor those shall frustrate my design. Let them not fear the treasons of the night, the robbed Palladium, the pretended flight. Our onset shall be made in open light. No wooden engine shall their town betray. Fires they shall have around, but fires by day. No Grecian babes before their camp appear, whom Hector's arms detain to the 10th tardy year. Now, since the sun is rolling to the west, give we the silent night to needful rest. Refresh your bodies, and your arms prepare. The morn shall end the small remains of war. All right, Turnus at the end here gives an epic speech, but let's go back to the beginning. So we're told that this thing that's hard to believe happened next, and we have the mother goddess, Cybele, who would be like Rhea in the Greek pantheon, went and asked Jupiter. So the trees from which Aeneas made the ships were from a sacred grove that was to the honor of Cybele, and she requests to her son, it would be wonderful if he would guarantee that they'd never be destroyed, that they wouldn't sink, that the waves or the winds wouldn't have their way and tip them over, that they would be kept safe from all harm. Well, Jupiter is a little upset by this and says, I can't guarantee something like that. If a ship needs to drown because fate demands it drown, it's going to drown. I'm not going to hold back from that kind of thing. However, I will make you a deal. If ships reach the Latian shore, then I will guarantee that they will be saved by being turned to nymphs. And so he swears by the river Styx, he swears by the Phlegethon, which would be the river of fire in Hades, and he gives an imperial nod. This is the greatest sign he can give. And it is so. That's when Turnus is about to fire the ships. All of a sudden, they see these signs in the sky, and they hear these choirs, and at last a voice. It's the voice of Cybele, and she says, "Trojans, stop defending the ships. The Rutulians that are attacking would have better luck burning the ocean than burning these ships, I tell you. And so I command you, ships, turn into nymphs now." And immediately, all of these ships become these sea nymphs, and they start going like dolphins in and out of the sea, plunging in and springing up. And everyone's kind of, well, in wonder, except for Turnus, who is able to keep his head. And he says, Jove has taken their ships away, so now they can't get away from this battle. They're forced to fight us or to yield unfought. They don't have access to the seas anymore, and it's not going to take much for us to completely destroy this dastard race. He thinks back of Troy, and the original city was attacked for the same reason that they're being attacked now. That there was a woman who was unrightfully taken from a man who deserved to have it. And so the Greeks attacked for a similar reason that Turnus is attacking, for Lavinia in this case. And so think about Troy. Troy had these massive walls, and Troy could not stand. So what about these puny, thin walls? What are they going to do to stop us? And so he calls everybody to fight, but he says, we're not going to be like those dirty Greeks who robbed the Palladium, the idol of Athena. They pretended to run away. They built the wooden engine, the Trojan horse. We're not going to sneak around and do things. We're going to do things the honorable way, I suppose. And we'll fight in the daylight. We're not going to have any of these stratagems. We're just going to take them out tomorrow. For tonight, let's go to bed and let night have its rest. So, Turnus is pretty confident still, not fazed at all by this strange omen of all these ships turning into sea nymphs. And he's confident that tomorrow is the day of doom for the Trojans. So we'll see how correct he is. Line 199. The post of honor to Messapus falls, to keep the nightly guard, to watch the walls, to pitch the fires at distances round, and close the Trojans in their scanty ground. Twice 7 Rutulian captains ready stand, and twice 700 horse their chiefs command. All clad in shining arms, the works invest, each with a radiant helm and waving crest. Stretched at their length, they press the grassy ground. They laugh, they sing, the jolly bowls go round. With lights and cheerful fires renew the day, and pass the wakeful night in feasts and play. The Trojans from above their foes beheld, and with armed legions all the rampires filled. Seized with affright, their gates they first explore, join works to works with bridges, tower to tower. Thus all things needful for defence abound. Menesthius and brave Serestus walk the round, commissioned by their absent prince to share the common danger and divide the care. The soldiers draw their lots, and as they fall, by turns relieve each other on the wall. Nigh where the foes their utmost guards advance, to watch the gate was warlike Nisus chance. His father Hyrtacus of noble blood, his mother was a huntress of the wood, and sent him to the wars. Well could he bear his lance in fight, and dart the flying spear, but better skilled unerring shafts to send. Beside him stood Euryalus, his friend, Euryalus, than whom the Trojan host no fairer face or sweeter air could boast. Scarce had the down to shade his cheeks begun. One was their care, and their delight was one. One common hazard in the war they shared, and now were both by choice upon the guard. Then Nisus thus: Or do the gods inspire this warmth, or make we gods of our desire? A generous ardor boils within my breast, eager of action, enemy to rest. This urges me to fight, and fires my mind to leave a memorable name behind. Thou seest the foe secure, how faintly shine their scattered fires. The most in sleep supine along the ground, and easy conquest lie. The wakeful few the fuming flagon ply, all hushed around. Now hear what I revolve, a thought unripe, and scarcely yet resolve. Our absent prince both camp and council mourn, by message both would hasten his return. If they confer what I demand on thee, for fame is recompense enough for me. Methinks beneath yon hill I have espied a way that safely will my passage guide. Euryalus stood listening while he spoke, with love of praise and noble envy struck. Then to his ardent friend exposed his mind. All this alone, and leaving me behind? Am I unworthy, Nisus, to be joined? Think'st thou I can my share of glory yield, or send thee unassisted to the field? Not so my father taught my childhood arms, born in a siege and bred among alarms. Nor is my youth unworthy of my friend, nor of the heaven-born hero I attend. The thing called life, with ease I can disclaim, and think it oversold to purchase fame. Then Nisus thus: Alas, thy tender years would minister new matter to my fears. So may the gods who view this friendly strife restore me to thy loved embrace with life, condemned to pay my vows, as sure I trust. This thy request is cruel and unjust. But if some chance, as many chances are, and doubtful hazards in the deeds of war, if one should reach my head, there let it fall, and spare thy life. I would not perish all. Thy bloomy youth deserves a longer date. Live thou to mourn thy love's unhappy fate, to bear my mangled body from the foe, or buy it back and funeral rites bestow. Or if hard fortune shall those dues deny, thou canst at least an empty tomb supply. O let not me the widow's tears renew, nor let a mother's curse my name pursue. Thy pious parent, who for love of thee forsook the coast of friendly Sicily, her age committing to the seas and wind, when every weary matron stayed behind. To this Euryalus: You plead in vain, and but protract the cause you cannot gain. No more delays, but haste. With that he wakes the nodding watch, each to his office takes. The guard relieved, the generous couple went to find the council at the royal tent. All creatures else forgot their daily care, and sleep, the common gift of nature, share, except the Trojan peers, who wakeful sate in nightly council for the endangered state. They vote a message to their absent chief, shew their distress, and beg a swift relief. Amid the camp a silent seat they chose, remote from clamor, and secure from foes. On their left arms their ample shields they bear, their right reclined upon the bending spear. Now Nisus and his friend approach the guard, and beg admission, eager to be heard. The affair important, not to be deferred. Ascanius bids them be conducted in, ordering the more experienced to begin. Okay, so Turnus is given this speech, and we hear that the post of honor has been given to Messapus, one of Turnus's men, to keep the nightly guard. So they have all these fires going, and people are stretched out, laughing, singing, drinking, and they're passing the night in feasts and play. Line 210. So the Trojans see this, and they're getting ready for war. They're making any connections between towers and bridges that they need to. They're gearing up for battle the next day. They're walking around, casting lots to see who's going to be on guard first and second and so on. That would be a way to determine the gods' will, probably more than anything, to say you are first because the gods want you to be first. And there's these two great friends, Nisus and Euryalus, and they're awake together. They're best friends. Euryalus is a very young man, not even shaving yet. And Nisus has this thought. He looks out over all of these Italians, these Latins' fires, and sees a lot of them are sleeping, and some of them are passing the flagon around. This would be the vessels for wine. And, gee, wouldn't it be an opportunity for fame and glory if we snuck through those lines and got a message to Aeneas? However, Nisus makes it clear that he wants to do this alone. Well, Euryalus is not okay with that. Are you going to leave me behind? You're my best friend, and my father didn't raise me to send someone out and take all the danger and then stay safe inside walls. I was bred and born into conflict. I mean, he was raised during the Trojan War. And so I consider a life well spent to buy fame, is kind of how he ends here. This thing called life with ease I can disclaim. I can give up my life. I don't think it's too big of a price to purchase fame. Well, Nisus, kind of combats and says, how could I be the cause of your death? Let me die, ransom my body, but I don't want you to die. I couldn't bear it. I couldn't bear the guilt that would come on me when your great mother would curse my name because I led to your death. And Euryalus says, stop talking, I'm going with you. And so they do. They approach the Trojan tent where the leaders are all trying to make plans, how they can get relief, how they can get Aeneas back quickly. And Nisus and Euryalus approach to pitch their idea. So we continue. Line 309. Then Nisus thus, ye fathers, lend your ears, nor judge our bold attempt beyond our years. The foe, securely drenched in sleep and wine, neglect their watch. The fires but thinly shine, and where the smoke and cloudy vapors flies, covering the plain and curling to the skies, betwixt two paths, which at the gate divide, close by the sea a passage we have spied, which will our way to great Aeneas guide. Expect each hour to see him safe again, loaded with spoils of foes and battle slain. Snatch we the lucky minute while we may, nor can we be mistaken in the way, for hunting in the vale we both have seen the rising turrets and the stream between, and know the winding course with every ford. He ceased, and old Alethes took the word. Our country gods, in whom our trust we place, will yet from ruin save the Trojan race, while we behold such dauntless worth appear in dawning youth, and souls so void of fear. Then into tears of joy the father broke, each in his longing arms by turns he took, panted and paused, and thus again he spoke. Ye brave young men, what equal gifts can we in recompense of such desert decree? The greatest sure and best you can receive, the gods in your own conscious worth will give. The rest our grateful general will bestow, and young Ascanius till his manhood owe. And I, whose welfare in my father lies, Ascanius adds, by the great deities, by my dear country, by my household gods, by hoary Vesta's rites and dark abodes, adjure you both, on you my fortune stands, that and my faith I plight into your hands. Make me but happy in his safe return, whose wonted presence I can only mourn. Your common gift shall 2 large goblets be, of silver, wrought with curious imagery, and high embossed, which, when old Priam reigned, my conquering sire at sacked Arisba gained. And more, 2 tripods cast in antique mould, with 2 great talents of the finest gold, beside a costly bowl, engraved with art which Dido gave, when first she gave her heart. But if in conquered Italy we reign, when spoils by lot the victor shall obtain, thou saw'st the courser by proud Turnus pressed, that Nisus and his arms and nodding crest and shields from chance exempt shall be thy share. 12 laboring slaves, 12 handmaids young and fair, all clad in rich attire, and trained with care. And last, a Latian field with fruitful plains, and a large portion of the king's domains. But thou, whose years are more to mine allied, No fate my vowed affection shall divide from thee, heroic youth. Be wholly mine. Take full possession. All my soul is thine. One faith, one fame, one fate shall both attend. My life's companion and my bosom friend, my peace shall be committed to thy care, and to thy conduct my concerns in war. Then thus the young Euryalus replied, Whatever fortune, good or bad, betide, the same shall be my age, as now my youth. No time shall find me wanting to my truth. This only from your goodness let me gain, and this ungranted, all rewards are vain. Of Priam's royal race my mother came, and sure the best that ever bore the name, whom neither Troy nor Sicily could hold from me departing, but o'erspent and old, my fate she followed. Ignorant of this, whatever danger, neither parting kiss nor pious blessing taken, her I leave, and in this only act of all my life deceive. By this right hand and conscious night I swear, my soul so sad a farewell could not bear. Be you her comfort, fill my vacant place, permit me to presume so great a grace, support her age, forsaken and distressed. That hope alone will fortify my breast against the worst of fortunes and of fears. He said, the moved assistants melt in tears. Then thus Ascanius, wonderstruck to see that image of his filial piety, so great beginnings in so green an age, exact the faith which I again engage. Thy mother all the due shall justly claim Creusa had, and only want the name. Whate'er event thy bold attempt shall have, 'tis merit to have borne a son so brave. Now by my head, a secret oath I swear, my father used it. What, returning here, crowned with success, I for thyself prepare, that if thou fail, shall thy loved mother share. Okay, so Nisus and Euryalus approach Ascanius and the other leaders, and they say, hey, listen, we have this idea. All of the Italians out there, they're sleeping, they've been drinking, and this is an opportunity for us to go and find Aeneas and guide him home. We know the woods well. We went hunting before, both of us, and so we can do this. Well, Elatheus, one of the leaders, is very impressed and touched by their bravery for their country. And he says, man, what gifts could we give for such an act? You will receive the best. And Ascanius adds, if you can bring my father home, whose presence we all sorely miss, then you will both get 2 large goblets of silver. You'll get these wonderful tripods of the finest gold. You'll get a costly bowl that Dido gave. You'll get all of these treasures. Nisus, you saw what Turnus had out there, his armor and his horses. You'll get those. You'll get 12 slaves, 12 handmaids, all of these gifts for your deed. And you, Euryalus, you're such a heroic youth. Pretty much whatever you want, I can give you. And Euryalus says, hey, I don't know what's going to happen to me out there. And there's one thing I want more than anything else. And I want my mom to be taken care of. You know, she followed me on my fate to Troy. She's followed me here. She's been braving the danger. And should things go well or not, I just want her to be taken care of. And Ascanius is wonderstruck by Euryalus' piety, especially at such a young age, and says, my mother would be treated no better than I will treat yours. And so we continue on line 406. He said, and weeping while he spoke the word, from his broad belt he drew a shining sword, magnificent with gold. Lycaon made, and in an ivory scabbard sheathed the blade. This was his gift. Great Menesthius gave his friend a lion's hide, his body to defend. And good Elatheus furnished him beside with his own trusty helm of temper tried. Thus armed they went. The noble Trojans wait their issuing forth, and follow to the gate with prayers and vows. Above the rest appears Ascanius, manly far beyond his years, and messages committed to their care, which all in winds were lost in flitting air. The trenches first they passed, then took their way where their proud foes in pitched pavilions lay, to many fatal ere themselves were slain. They found the careless host dispersed upon the plain, who gorged and drunk with wine supinely snore. Unharnessed chariots stand along the shore, amidst the wheels and reins the goblet by, a medley of debauch and war they lie. Observing Nisus shewed his friend the sight. Behold, a conquest gained without a fight. Occasion offers, and I stand prepared. There lies our way, be thou upon the guard, and look around while I securely go, and hew a passage through the sleeping foe. Softly he spoke, then striding took his way, with his drawn sword, where haughty Rhamnes lay. His head raised high on tapestry beneath, and heaving from his breast, he drew his breath. A king and prophet by King Turnus loved, but fate by prescience cannot be removed. Him and his sleeping slaves he slew. Then spies where Ramus with his rich retinue lies, his armor-bearer first, and next he kills his charioteer entrenched betwixt the wheels and his loved horses. Last invades their lord. Full on his neck he drives the fatal sword. The gasping head flies off. A purple flood flows from the trunk that welters in the blood, which, by the spurning heels dispersed around, the bed besprinkles and bedews the ground. Lamus the bold and Lamyrus the strong he slew, and then Seranus fair and young. From dice and wine the youth retired to rest, and puffed the fumy god from out his breast. Even then he dreamt of drink and lucky play, more lucky had it lasted till the day. The famished lion thus, with hunger bold, o'erleaps the fences of the nightly fold, and tears the peaceful flocks. With silent awe, trembling they lie, and pant beneath his paw. Nor with less rage Euryalus employs the wrathful sword, or fewer foes destroys. But on the ignoble crowd his fury flew. He Photis, Habasus, and Rhoetus slew. Oppressed with heavy sleep the former fall, but Rhoetus wakeful, and observing all, behind a spacious jar he slinked for fear. The fatal iron found and reached him there. For as he rose it pierced his naked side, and reeking thence returned and crimson dyed. The wound pours out a stream of wine and blood. The purple soul comes floating in the flood. Now, where Messapus quartered, they arrive. The fires were fainting there, and just alive. The warrior horses, tied in order, fed. Nisus observed the discipline, and said, Our eager thirst of blood may both betray, and see the scattered streaks of dawning day, foe to nocturnal thefts. No more, my friend. Here let our glutted execution end. A lane through slaughtered bodies we have made. The bold Euryalus, though loath, obeyed. Of arms and arras and of plate they find a precious load, but these they leave behind. Yet, fond of gaudy spoils, the boy would stay to make the rich caparison his prey, which on the steed of conquered Rhamnes lay. Nor did his eyes less longingly behold the girdle belt with nails of burnished gold. This present Caedicus the rich bestowed on Ramilus, when friendship first they vowed, and absent joined in hospitable ties. He, dying, to his heir bequeathed the prize, till by the conquering Ardean troops oppressed he fell, and they the glorious gift possessed. These glittering spoils now made the victor's gain, he to his body suits, but suits in vain. Messapus' helm he finds among the rest, and laces on, and wears the waving crest. Proud of their conquest, prouder of their prey, they leave the camp and take the ready way. But far they had not passed, before they spied 300 horse, with Volscens for their guide. The queen a legion to King Turnus sent, but the swift horse the slower foot prevent, and now advancing sought the leader's tent. They saw the pair, for through the doubtful shade his shining helm Euryalus betrayed, on which the moon with full reflection played. "'Tis not for naught," cried Volscens from the crowd, "these men go there." Then raised his voice aloud, "Stand, stand! Why thus in arms, and whither bent? From whence, to whom, and on what errand sent?" Silent they scud away, and haste their flight to neighboring woods, and trust themselves to night. The speedy horse all passages belay, and spur their smoking steeds to cross their way.
and watch each entrance of the winding wood. All right, so we have Euryalus and Nisus, and they are given armor and weapons for their mission, and thus armed they went, and they go out into the Trojans through the trench, and they find all of these undisciplined men. They're sleeping, they're drunk, and Nisus says, hey, this is an opportunity. We can kill a lot of men, get ourselves a lot of glory, take some spoil, and we can make a path through these sleeping men to go and find Aeneas. And so, one by one, they start taking out all of these enemy troops, and they're sleeping, they're drunk, and some grisly details are relayed. One man's head is cut off, and it's like a lion coming in the middle of the night and tearing apart their prey. And so Euryalus sees all these treasures that he really wants, and Nisus at one point says, hey, it's getting close to dawn and we'll be discovered. We have to stop here and let's get on our way. And so Euryalus, though loath, he's not excited to, but he obeys, and he sees all these treasures that he would really like to have, but he leaves them behind. And so they are trying to sneak past into the woods to find Aeneas when, in the bright moonlight, the helmet on Euryalus' head glints, and Volscens, who is one of the enemy, sees these two people going through their camp. And so he shouts out to them to stop, and they make their way into the wood. So this last line, and watch each entrance of the winding wood. So picking up on line 518. Black was the forest, thick with beech it stood, horrid with fern, and intricate with thorn. Few paths of human feet or tracks of beasts were worn. The darkness of the shades his heavy prey, and fear misled the younger from his way. But Nisus hit the turns with happier haste, and thoughtless of his friend, the forest passed, and Alban plains, from Alba's name so called, where King Latinus then his oxen stalled, till turning at the length, he stood his ground, and missed his friend, and cast his eyes around. Ah, wretch, he cried, where have I left behind the unhappy youth? Where shall I hope to find, or what way take? Again he ventures back, and treads the mazes of his former track. He winds the wood, and listening hears the noise of tramping coursers, and the rider's voice. The sound approached, and suddenly he viewed the foes enclosing, and his friend pursued, forelaid and taken, while he strove in vain the shelter of the friendly shades to gain. What should he next attempt? What arms employ? What fruitless force to free the captive boy? Or desperate should he rush and lose his life, with odds oppressed in such unequal strife? Resolved at length, his pointed spear he shook, and casting on the moon a mournful look, guardian of groves, and goddess of the night, fair queen, he said, direct my dart aright. If e'er my pious father for my sake did grateful offerings on thy altars make, or I increased them with my sylvan toils, and hung thy holy roofs with savage spoils, give me to scatter these. Then from his ear he poised, and aimed, and launched the trembling spear. The deadly weapon hissing from the grove, impetuous on the back of Sulmo drove, pierced his thin armor, drank his vital blood, and in his body left the broken wood. He staggers round, his eyeballs roll in death, and with short sobs he gasps away his breath. All stood amazed. A second javelin flies with equal strength, and quivers through the skies. This through thy temples, Tagus, forced the way, and in the brain-pan warmly buried lay. Fierce Volscens foams with rage, and gazing round descried not him who gave the fatal wound, nor knew to fix revenge. But thou, he cries, shalt pay for both, and at the prisoner flies with his drawn sword. Then, struck with deep despair, that cruel sight the lover could not bear, but from his covert rushed in open view, and sent his voice before him as he flew. Me, he cried, turn all your swords alone on me. The fact confess, the fault my own. He neither could nor durst, the guiltless youth. Ye moon and stars, bear witness to the truth. His only crime, if friendship can offend, is too much love to his unhappy friend. Too late he speaks. The sword which fury guides, driven with full force, had pierced his tender sides. Down fell the beauteous youth. The yawning wound gushed out a purple stream and stained the ground. His snowy neck reclines upon his breast, like a fair flower by the keen share oppressed, like a white poppy sinking on the plain, whose heavy head is overcharged with rain. Despair and rage and vengeance justly vowed drove Nisus headlong on the hostile crowd. Volscens he seeks, on him alone he bends, borne back and bored by his surrounding friends. Onward he pressed and kept him still in sight, then whirled aloft his sword with all his might. The unerring steel descended while he spoke, pierced his wide mouth, and through his weapon broke. Dying he slew, and staggering on the plain, with swimming eyes he sought his lover slain, then quiet on his bleeding bosom fell, content in death to be revenged so well. O happy friends, for if my verse can give immortal life, your fame shall ever live, fixed as the Capitol's foundation lies, and spread where'er the Roman eagle flies. All right. So Nisus and Euryalus have made their way into the woods, but it's pitch black in there. It's really hard to see. It's a little bit frightening, and so quickly Euryalus gets lost. And Nisus has a much better time. He keeps his head, and he gets to the end. It's a little bit like in Finding Nemo when Marlin makes his way through all of the jellyfish, and he gets to the end only to realize that Dory's not with him. The exact same thing happens here. And he looks back and says, "Oh no, what happened to you?" Cries out for his best friend. This is very much, by the way, like when Creusa gets lost. And so he turns around, he makes his way back, he's looking for Euryalus, and then Nisus finally finds him. But he has been taken captive. So he hides behind a tree, he's trying to figure out what he should do, and he decides to pray to Artemis and ask for help that these spears that he's about to throw would find their mark. And so he throws the first one, and it hits Solmo in the back and kills him pretty quickly. He staggers around, his eyeballs roll in death. Well, everyone looks around. What just happened? It's dark. Their friend just got hit. Where'd that come from? And then he throws another one, and it hits Tagus in the temples. And now Volscens shouts out to whoever did that, "You'll pay," and then he jumps at Euryalus. He's going to kill him. Well, Nisus is terrified at the thought. This is his best friend. They've been very close. So he jumps out from his hiding place. No, it's me. It wasn't his fault at all. His only fault was that he was such a good friend to me. He's here. He's by my side. He just got lost. He's a young boy. Don't hurt him. Well, Volscens cares not. And so he quickly drives his sword full force into Euryalus, into this handsome young man, too young to die, and he dies like a flower being pressed into the ground. And so despair and rage and vengeance comes over Nisus, and he flies at Volscens, and they end up killing each other. So dying, he slew. He gets the revenge he wanted, but in the process, he is killed. And so they fall side by side, and Virgil gives this comment: "Wherever the Roman eagle flies, the story of your camaraderie, your bravery, your piety will be told."